Okay, so I know this video may come in a bit late, possibly even after Lyfe's banner has already ended, but hey, when you actively play 1000 gacha games and you also edit your own videos, time becomes a loose concept. But enough whining and let's get right into it, what I'm going to touch in this video. So I will quickly go over both Lyfe's and Fenny's kits, what you need to know in order to maximize their potential, what stats you should be aiming for from the logistic sets, what weapons you can use, are they worth going for, or building, and going for their team synergies. So without further ado, let's start analyzing everyone's favorite wives. And first up is Lyfe, which received a nice wedding glow up, I'm not gonna lie, but design upgrades aside, let's start with her kit analysis. And for this I will let Mr. Ratio take over, who just came back from his vacation, and I will see you after his part when I will go over the recommended weapons for her.
Well, my vacation was fun while it lasted. Oh well, let's do this. Although Lyfe's kit is fairly simple to grasp, it is quite deceptively difficult to master. The first thing to note about her new form is that this one is wielding dual submachine guns, which have a high rate of fire, and their accuracy can be a bit tricky, especially if you are moving a lot. And trust me, you will be moving a lot with her. The next thing you need to note, and the most important thing you need to pay attention to, is the eye symbol just below the crosshair. This will fill up under two conditions, either when you are shooting enemies with your guns or when you are using her standard skill. Please note that using her standard skill will fill up the entire eye in one go if you unlock one of her neuronics. After you have filled the eye, press dodge in whatever direction you want, and Lyfe will perform an enhanced dodge and will also shoot at the targets close to her. This attack is tied to her active skill. It is very important to note that you may think that this dodge attack will hit in an AoE around her in all scenarios. This is not the case, especially if you only filled the eye by shooting one single elite enemy, as in this scenario, the dodge shot will prioritize the elite enemy over hitting the other enemies as well. So if you are in a scenario with both an elite enemy and fodder ones as well, and you want AoE damage, either use her skill to target more enemies or avoid hitting the elite enemy. Another very important piece of information is that the dodge shot will only hit targets in the direction you are facing. Even if you marked an enemy previously, that enemy will not be hit if he drops out of your vision field when you perform the dodge. So keep this in mind as well. Returning back to her normal skill, as I mentioned, once you press it, you will hit the surrounding enemies, causing up to 5 instances of damage, and you will also mark them. Enemies marked will take increased damage from her dodge attack, so in order to maximize her damage, you want to use her skill every time it is off cooldown. Please note that an enemy can be marked multiple times, but to a maximum of 3 marks per enemy, and the damage they receive will be reduced to 30% after the initial mark. As you can see, while her single target damage will indeed stack against a single target, the damage ceiling is lowered by the 30% reduced damage, so her maximum damage will come when dealing with multiple waves of enemies, as there is no restriction there. But that is not all in support of using her against multiple enemies, as by marking multiple enemies with her skill, she will also reduce the energy requirement for her ultimate up to a whopping cost of 0 energy if she hits 6 enemies with it. So yeah, in case the point that you should spam her skill didn't reach home before, I hope it does now. Lastly, there are a couple of passive effects added to her skill as well. Namely, you gain more stacks to fill up her eye if the enemy is marked by her skill, and she will also have a 50% damage reduction when she is performing the dodge attack. Lastly, for every 1% increase in fire rate and in crit rate, the damage of her dodge attack will increase. So if you are unlucky with your logistic stats, or when you are playing the paradoxical labyrinth and stack on these buffs, you will see the damage difference. Her support skill is a pretty simple damage in front of her, which will also increase the final damage received by the enemy by 20% when you unlock one of the neuronics, which is a nice damage buff that you should use when available. You can even swap to an ally, use Lyfe Support skill, and swap back to Lyfe to let Lyfe enjoy the damage boost done by herself. A bit narcissistic, but we will let it slide. And finally, Her ultimate, once you reach 60 energy, or after you marked 6 enemies with her skill, press the ultimate button to enjoy an absolute cinema of a cutscene. Well, for the first use in a battle, as subsequent uses will not play the cutscene anymore, and then experience Lyfe's definition of spin to win for 10 seconds, as she literally will spin around and damage everyone around her in a deceptively large AoE area. And I do mean a deceptively large AoE area, as this thing is quite massive. It can almost cover most maps from the underground purge mode. But do note that the enemies on the far edge of her ring damage will take reduced damage, up to 50%, so it's recommended to get close and personal when you are performing her ultimate, which should be manageable to the fact that she will get 50% damage reduction and reduced interruption while spinning. And the last thing to note is that by hitting enemies with her dodge shot, the cooldown of her ultimate will be reduced, and the ultimate will do more damage to targets marked by her skill. Her passive is a damage increase to her dodge attack. Once the eye is filled, you need to pay close attention to her ammo count, as this damage increase will consume 10 ammo, and if you do not have enough ammo, the damage will go down by 50%. So with all that mumbo-jumbo text out of the way, how do you effectively play her? Well, the rotation should be that you start with her skill, so you mark the opponents, and afterwards you immediately perform her dodge attack by dodging, as the eye would have been filled from the skill. Afterwards, while the skill is on cooldown, you basically shoot at the enemies until you fill the eye again and perform a second dodge shot. By the time you finish the animation for the second dodge shot, your skill should be back up and you can rinse and repeat. Once you reach 60 energy or hit 6 targets with the skill, you use your ultimate and spin around for 10 seconds, or until you decide to cancel the ultimate animation. Therefore, I would recommend this rotation for prolonged fights, mainly against single targets. Skill into dodge shot, normal shooting into dodge shot again, and repeat until you reach 50 points of energy, then use her skill, and afterwards go into her ultimate for the increased damage. For quicker fights where multiple enemies are spawning at once, skill into dodge shot into immediate ultimate use, as you would reduce the energy cost up to 0 in these scenarios. After the ultimate animation is done, return to skill into dodge shot and shoot into dodge shot tango until you get the ultimate back from the cooldown. And that is all. That is how you play Lyfe Infinite Sight. And trust that while it may sound easy enough on paper, once you get to practice, you will find out it will take some time to really get into the flow. Now, to finish the kit aspect for manifestations, I would say the first 2 are worth gunning down, as they will maximize her damage, and they will also smooth out her rotation, especially her second one, as it will reduce the amount of ammo needed to maximize her eye with her normal shots by refunding 20 points of the bar necessary after each dodge shot to fill up the eye again. The other notable ones are the third and the final manifestations, which are straight-up damage buffs. But you don't really need to go for them unless you really want to max out her damage potential. Huh. I thought this will be harder to do after coming back from vacation. Guess I am really that good, it comes naturally.
And with this segue into damage potential, let's go over the weapons, and the competition is really non-existent here, as her signature is by far the best option for her. And it's also recommended to get the second copy for it in order to refine it, as the jump up in damage from her T1 to her T5 weapon is quite noticeable. But that is only if you want to obliterate everything in front of you. If you want to still have a bit of a challenge, the base copy of her signature or the maxed out event weapon will also service you plenty. I myself only pulled the base copy of her signature, but if I get enough shards from duplicate weapons, I would definitely refine it in the future. Moving on to her logistic set, you will absolutely want to use her signature set, so in case you haven't bought it from the event shop, do it. As for stats, try to get attack, as this will be the best stat to increase her overall damage, alignment index in order to boost up the damage increase from her dodge shot, from her passive, and skill haste in order to reduce the cooldown from her main skill. The final stat you need to reroll once you have your 3 pieces to level 15 is kinetic damage, and in terms of what percentages you should aim for your substats, of course try to get the maximum roll for each piece, which are 10% for attack, 106% for alignment index, or 19% for skill haste, and 8.5% for kinetic damage. but don't stress out. If you want to get the perfect pieces with the perfect rolls for your stats, even getting all 3 pieces of her logistic set for the passive it gives is more than enough to get her going. You can always finish up the pieces you lack by farming the set later. And finally for Lyfe, what are her team recommendations? First up is Fenny Starshine, as Fenny will make you forget about the need to reload to keep up Lyfe's passive, and it will provide her with all the buffs she wants. Moxie Shadowka is another great pair, especially against bosses who like to fly or teleport around, as you can focus your damage on Moxie's clone and mow him down. Katya Kaguya is always nice support for the grouping capabilities she has and the type damage buff she will provide. Echel, in case you also have a weapon for the constant attack buff it will provide, is also nice, and Tess is also decent for the damage buff provided by her support skill. As a conclusion, is she worth going for and building? Yes. Is she fun but also challenging to play? Also yes. Did she get hotter? Absolutely. So do what you want with this assessment and decide if she's worth it, but do keep in mind you would be canonically skipping on one of your wives if you do decide to skip her. And with Lyfe done, let's go to the other wife we received this patch, which is Fenny, which is just as, if not more, insane of a good unit as Lyfe is. Starshine can be played as either a main damage dealer or as a support, but the clear winner between the two playstyles is the support variant, but I will go over both of them nonetheless. Once again, I will let Ratio go over the kit aspect, and I will come back once he is done with the kit analysis. Ratio, take it away.
You know I noticed how you ignored me on the first part, no? Ah, hell. Why do I even bother? He already left. Okay, let's start with the damage option. This one comes from her main skill, as Fenny will load up different ammunition named Stargem clips into her weapon, depending on the direction you choose to take when you press her skill. Don't worry, once you unlock the neuronics, it will have no cooldown so you can spam away. So if you choose to go forward, she will consume some skill energy and load 15 bullets. Once you unlock the second neuronic, 10 if you haven't unlocked it, which once fired will deal damage in a rather small AoE range. If you choose to go to either right or left, she will also consume 15 skill energy and load 45 bullets. Same as before, only 30 if you didn't unlock the neuronic, which have no AoE but have a higher rate of fire. And lastly, if you go backwards, she will load 45 bullets with no energy consumption, but instead the shots from this magazine will restore skill energy. The Stargem clip she loads is different from her normal ammunition and will be consumed first, so you can fire out an entire Stargem clip, and once it is depleted, Fenny will simply continue to shoot out her normal ammunition until that is also depleted, or until you use her skill again and load up one more Stargem clip. Jumping to the other part of her kit, related to her main damage dealer role, her ultimate, which will have Fenny shoot out a laser for 5 seconds and also provide her with a 50% damage reduction while the laser is active. The sad part is that once you press her ultimate and the animation has started, you can no longer adjust the direction the laser is firing. Therefore, you need to make sure the enemy is static, or this one will basically do no damage. Its laser range is also deceptively small, horizontally at least, so this one is really quite difficult to pull off correctly in most cases. And that is all the stuff you need to know about her kit to play her as a main DPS. So basically, the rotation would be as follows. Load up her Stargem clip by either going forward when you need AoE damage, or to the sides once you need ore bullets and consistent damage. When you notice that you cannot use her skill anymore, go backwards in order to refill the skill energy and keep going. Once an enemy is either stunned or static, use her ultimate and go back to refilling her Stargem clip while it fires. That's it. That is Starshine as a DPS. Now let's look at the more attractive support part of her kit. Her support skill has 3 charges, and each charge used will reload 100% of the magazine of your active unit with a Stargem clip, or for crossbows units who have infinite ammo, 40 rounds of normal firing bolts and 15 bolts of special firing bolts. So in Katya's case, that is 40 enhanced rounds of the rapid fire mode and 15 of the AoE hitting ones. And just like in her main damage dealer mode, the Stargem clip ammo provided by this skill will be consumed when firing before the standard ammunition of your active unit. So what this effectively means is that you will not need to reload anymore on your active unit, which, if you haven't picked it up yet, means that not having to reload in a shooting game with your DPS unit is absolutely insanely broken, at least for DPS units that are dependent on their ammo count, as we also have some that deal damage mainly from their skills or ultimate. But all the meta DPS units will love Starshine's reload-free playstyle, so I guess she did win in the end. And before I forget, on top of reloading the magazine while Stargem clip is active, the deployed operative who has it also gets a nice 20% attack buff based on Fenny's attack, because why not? The last part of Fenny's support kit is her passive, which is straight up 12% ballistic damage at base level once you equip her with kinetic damage. And in case you didn't know, ballistic damage is the damage you are doing by shooting enemies with your bullets, which in shooting damage everyone does. So, as a support, how do you play Fenny? Well, it is as simple as pressing the support skill button to load up the Stargem clip on the active unit and reapply it via another charge out of the 3 available ones once you are close to consuming it. In most cases, you won't get to go through a 4th charge, as by the time you need a 4th reload, the enemy is most likely already dead. For manifestations, the first 2 are the most important ones, as the first one will provide your active operator with additional effects when they have the Stargem clip, depending on their weapon type, and all of them are really good. And the second one will have the Stargem clip provide even more ammunition once used. So this will further boost the overall damage of your team as well as reduce the need to go to the 4th charge of the support skill. The remaining ones are also good, but not as big as the first 2 are. The third one will help you with charge management of your support skill. But like I said, by the time you unlock it, you most likely won't need it. And the final one is 10% defense ignore for your active operator while the Stargem clip is active, which is nice, but considering the time needed to unlock it, it is hardly needed or recommended unless you truly want to max out your team's DPS. I am done. Now come back here and go over those weapons as you wrote down in this boring script of yours and collect the glory of my work.
For logistics, just level up the free logistics set given by the developers if you plan on building her as a support, and reroll for kinetic damage on the last sub slot for all 3 pieces. In case you started playing after dispatch and missed out on the logistics set, you should aim for attack, alignment index and kinetic damage on her substats. For the DPS build, aim for attack, crit damage and kinetic damage on your substats and change the set from her signature set to the Amano set. For weapons, her signature is the best option for both builds, but the event weapon is also a good option. For the DPS build, you could also go as an alternative to the event weapon to the Battle Pass weapon Ashen Fortress, but I would personally stick to Pixel Era, as you will be able to get this weapon for free even if you started playing after dispatch from the Fortune shop. And lastly, for Fenny's teammates, like I mentioned previously, both wives are working perfectly with each other, so Lyfe Infinite Sight is absolutely an amazing pairing for her, but in my opinion the 2 biggest winners are Cherno and Fenny Coronet, as both of them will see a significant boost in damage from having to forgo reloading. And yeah, who would have guessed that Fenny's best support is Fenny. Truly a main heroine moment right here. Another great option is Chenxing, as she will also appreciate not having to reload and being able to continuously hit the targets marked by her skill. Now for the conclusion for Fenny. Is she insanely good? Yes, especially as a support. Did she get hotter? You bet. Is she absolutely wife material? No doubt. Did she win in the end? Well, that is for you to decide, but in my case, both of them won me over. Should you pull her if you missed her window when she was free? And that is all. Everything you need to know about both wives introduced in this patch. I hope you all enjoyed this video and are having fun with the anniversary patch, and remember to stretch before intense physical activity in order to achieve peak performance, and yeah, stay smart and sexy.